Here we've got a typical Ford wet belt engine. This one here is actually a 21 plate owned by a friend of ours who has just fitted an engine to it. He actually managed to get another broken one, put an engine in, and of course it doesn't run properly. Now this hasn't been touched. He has tried to clear the fault codes, and he's actually tried to program the injectors using an aftermarket Chinese tool that didn't work. We're going to have a look at a couple of scenarios. We're going to use aftermarket tool to start off with. We're going to use Autocom in this case just to have a look at it because it's got the best data and the best information. And then actually we're going to use the genuine Ford tool probably to do the programming, because you'll see the differences. Before we get started on any diagnostic job, it's absolutely essential that we have a battery support unit. So here we've got a GYS Flash 121, which we're going to power up here. This is essential because particularly with OEM tools, it senses the voltage and it'll want to know that it's on battery support.
So we have our Autocom ICON aftermarket diagnostic tool connected into the vehicle. We've got our little blue LED indicating there, which means that we're communicating actually on Bluetooth communication for this part of the diagnostics. Because we're not doing any coding and programming at this point, it's safe enough to say that we're okay to communicate over on Bluetooth. There's a couple of different ways, first of all, of identifying the vehicle with the Autocom software. One of them is by the vehicle identification number. So we're fortunate in the UK that we can read the full vehicle details from the registration number. Just note on a side of caution on that particular format, if you're going to use the registration number, not all registration numbers will decode the VIN exactly into the engine type and the engine size, so there may be some manual input still to do. I think fortunately with this particular vehicle, I think all the information that we need we're going to be able to get from the registration number. However, if we didn't know the registration number, or it was a personalised registration not registered at DVLA, we could simply select the brand, the make, the model, the year, etc. Bit more involved, as we'd need to do some manual detection work to get that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the registration number into here. So as soon as we've typed our registration number in, there's no enter, no nothing. It will automatically search the database. Of course, you will need an internet connection on your laptop to do that with, because it needs to check against the DVLA. It's identified the vehicle identification number here on the left hand side, and really quite useful as well. Before we'd even done that, if we didn't have the diagnostic tool already connected, there is a little handy connection guide here as to where the diagnostic socket location is. Worth having a look at the notes in here, because there are some useful bits of information when you're connecting to vehicles that have got key cards, for example, where vehicles go into economy mode. So there's some really good little hints and tips of information that can be found in that diagnostic connection guide. On the right hand side of the screen under the registration number, the system is automatically defaulted into almost like the special functions section. But before we go that far, we're going to do a global scan of the vehicle first. So we can do that by selecting one of these icons over here. It's also worth noting and mentioning at this point here that this particular system, the Autocom, is very, very good on vehicles with secure gateway. And we have a unique secure gateway icon here, which is just identified by the little person symbol here in the center. Now, there's a couple of ways in which you can use that. You can click on it and sign in before you start your diagnostic session, or you can wait until you're actually wanting to get through a secure gateway and physically enter the details there. Okay, so it's worth noting. So to start our global system scan, there's a little icon at the bottom in the center screen here. We simply select. Once we've made that selection, this is where we can decide which ECUs we actually want the system to actually scan for. So if we want to do a full complete vehicle scan, then we can leave the tick boxes alone in place. If not, we can deselect and we can just select the ECUs that we're interested in. That might be just the drivetrain, the powertrain, or it could be body control modules. All right. In this instance, we're going to leave them all selected so you can see how quickly it does a full global scan. We'll start with the scan button. You can see our battery voltage up here in the top right hand corner. It's set to 14.6 volts, courtesy of our stabilised battery voltage that we've got on under the vehicle at the moment. As we're starting to scan, we can see we've got a couple of fault codes. Now we've got a yellow warning triangle here. This indicates that the VIN number has not been able to identify the exact engine code on the vehicle, so it is asking us to make a manual selection. I know already by doing my research through technical data that it is the YN2X engine. So we're going to use that later when we go in specifically to the engine system. Okay, Okay, now I've selected the engine, you can now see the yellow warning triangle has disappeared, and we now have a little number 2 in a red circle. That denotes that we've got 2 specific DTCs, data trouble codes, stored in that ECU. We've also got an additional fault code here stored in the climate control, but we're not really interested in that particular fault code today. We're interested really in what faults may have occurred in the engine since an engine swap. So as we look at the software here now on screen, we have our systems located down the left hand side, so we can see the ECUs that have resulted with no fault codes and the ECUs with fault codes. So we can just navigate quite easily and simply into one of these respective systems on the left, which is quite handy because the service light reset is automatically listed at the top. So if we just wanted to do a quick service reset, we can identify that just with the service light reset option there at the top. Center, we have our DTC stored. Now of course that list could be quite big depending on how many it finds on the initial global scan. And on the right hand side of the screen then we've got the split into 2 specific areas. It's split into real-time data, which is what we're selected now, which is identifiable by the little green symbol here, or alternatively we can look at the special functions. Okay, so this is the special functions and the real-time data options side of the screen. Now on live data and special functions, the list will be quite big at the moment because all we've done is identified all systems on the vehicle. So this will now show us all the things that we can probably do and look at whilst we're on the particular vehicle. If we need to narrow that down, then we need to select our ECU on the left. So we're going to go ahead now and select our diesel engine ECU. On the right hand side you'll see now the list has gone specific to live data just for the engine management ECU. Before we go into any special functions, what we're going to do however is just look at the fault codes. So we've got here our 2 fault codes, P228C and we've got the P0087, both with descriptions of fuel pressure regulator 1 and fuel pressure control valve. So we're directly now inside the engine ECU screen. We can see our fault codes that we've got here. Now it's worth pointing out there are a couple of additional little symbols over here on the right hand side. Okay, so we've got our what we call freeze frame data, so that's hidden underneath this little icon here. What that does is basically breaks down and shows us exactly how many times it's been seen or how many times the fault codes occurred since last search, etc. And also as well, this particular little symbol is going to give us some guided diagnostics on it as well, so probability rate of where the specific issue should be. It's worth noting that this particular system, you can incorporate it into the Haynes Pro Technical data, so you can get a lot more information around the fault code, wiring diagrams and technical help and assistance. Also safety recalls and technical bulletins, so that's a well worth add-on subscription. Down here now on the left hand side underneath the read the DTCs, we've got the same symbol but with a little cross through it. That basically now is our erase DTC option. So if I wanted to try to erase these 2 fault codes and see if they did recur, we could do that quite easily. I'm not going to do that at this point here because I'm going to use this as a comparison against the dealer tool. The next option down is the real-time data. So again, we can select this 363 potential bits of data that we can see from the ECU, and we can actually then select exactly what we want to view over here on the right hand side. That will display either as a text interface, whichever you prefer, so that can be quite nice, and it gives you the ability to build up your own data lists. We've got then our specific basic adjustments or our tests, and the way this works here is you have a drop down menu here that then says exactly what we can do. So we've got our injector programming, our injector additive reset, diesel particulate filter regen, and reset the diesel particulate filter data. Again, other ECUs will show other different options. Now I mentioned earlier about the injector programming, so I'm going to select the injector programming option. This now will give us a nice little text help file that tells us exactly what all the prerequisites are and how we should proceed. So we can take a couple of seconds just to read through. It wants to know the injector code may consist of both letters and numbers. If there's any characters that are not used, as some manufacturers don't use I's and 1's, for example, so you get them mixed up. So again, that will tell you any specifics that you're looking for here. And again, the procedure, so start the function, dialog box appears showing the programmed injector codes, press OK. So it's giving us a nice little walkthrough. When we're happy that we've read everything and that we meet all the prerequisites, we start the actual physical function with the little play icon here on the right hand side. Now it's asking us to make sure the engine is off, but the ignition is on. We have got ignition switched on position 2, no engine running, click OK. And what we're really wanting to see now are these injector codes that are physically stored. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to check these codes now to see if these are actually the same in the software and in the ECU. Are they the correct ones that are stored for the physical injectors? So we're going to go and check those with the pictures that we've saved from the physical codes off the injectors earlier. So we'd identified the injector codes are different, so we do need to proceed with programming. Now if we were using the Autocom tool, that could be quite easily simply done by selecting cylinder 1, or you can select whichever cylinder you want that's actually had the injector code replaced. In this instance, all 4 have been changed, so we need to go through each one by one anyway. The technical data and the help will easily identify us, or the Haynes technical information will identify which is cylinder 1 to 4, so it'll tell us how to read cylinder 1, which is the closest this end and that end, so we don't get them all mixed up. But quite easily and simply, we select the cylinder that we want, we click OK, and we type the new injector code in. After that, the data will then be saved. We're not going to do it with this particular tool, we're going to see how that performs with the dealer tool. So we're all set up here now with the Ford Dealer Diagnostic tool on the Ford Ranger. 2021 plate, 2 litre diesel. We're going to see what the Dealer Diagnostic tool gives us over and above our Aftermarket tool. So of course we know it's going to give us the fault codes, etc. We know it's going to do the global scan. We're going to show you that. We're going to go through the screenshots so you can see as a comparison how this compares to the Aftermarket tool. We've got our battery voltage here, which is highlighted now in our bottom right hand corner as opposed to the top left. We've got our connections down here at the bottom of the screen, which are all green and good. So we've got our connection to the VCI. Again, I've set it up on wireless because I'm not doing any coding and programming at this point, but if we were, then obviously we'd want it on a USB connection because we really want to make sure that that data and that information gets into the vehicle. But for the purpose of diagnostics, we're okay on Wi-Fi. We've got a good Wi-Fi strength, and more importantly, we've got our GYS battery support unit on, keeping that constant voltage. So we're going to go ahead now. I've made sure the ignition is switched on. We're going to hit the read VIN from vehicle. This is going to manually now read the VIN, input the VIN, which it has done. We now have to click the go option. Now the go option automatically starts now the downloading of the vehicle information. So this is something extra that the dealer tool will do that the Aftermarket doesn't do. So what it's doing now is it's downloading the vehicle information. So it knows exactly how the vehicle was built, so it knows what it's looking for, and it's looking to marry up those details on the vehicle. Have I got everything that I left the factory and build with? Which is really can be quite useful and really important in certain jobs and certain instances. This is something, of course, that Aftermarket tools don't offer you. This will hopefully identify as well those ECUs that are on the vehicle and whether the software within them is already up to date or whether they do need updating. Again, something else that the dealer tool offers you that the Aftermarket tool doesn't really give you. So we're doing our network performance tests. So as before with the Autocom tool, we had to start our global system scan ourselves manually. With the Dealer Diagnostic tool, we don't. It's identified the VIN and it's automatically doing that as part of its gathering of data and information. Whilst it's running its network performance test and it's identifying certain things, it's worth just pointing out as well this little module overview screen here. So you can see here, Dealer Diagnostic software likes to use various colours so you can quickly identify what faults they are, whether they're historical faults, whether they're actual what they call CMDT. Now a CMTD is a continuously monitored diagnostic trouble code. That's something obviously that's something you need to be aware of, and really importantly as well is this grey little option here that says it's not responding. That can be really useful for modules that don't get detected whilst we're in global scan. So things, for example, you may have a broken wire, it may be off the CAN bus, it may be short-circuited, so it's quite useful to see the vehicle ECUs that should be there and the ones that are actually not responding. So this is the latest generation VCM3. You can see it's hard at work here with the lights that are flashing away. we've now gathered the information that is required, so you can see the additional information that it gives us on the dealer tool on this right hand side. So it knows now exactly what this vehicle is. It knows the mileage, it knows the engine, it knows the transmission, it knows how it was built, it knows the colour, when it was built, and all of the information from the database that's held on Ford has just been now downloaded and compared. On this left hand side menu screenshot here now, we've got the ECU systems, the description, so we know what they call the ECU. So we've got the acronyms here, we've got the full description, and then really importantly in this center column here, this nice little colorful display, we can see now which of the ECUs that are green that have responded positively with no fault codes in them, and we've got the ones here with the little amber and the little yellow ones to indicate obviously that we've got fault codes stored within them. So as you can see, one of the things that's easily identifiable from our previous scan that we did with our Autocom diagnostic tool, we only had 2 ECUs on a global scan that found faults. Here now, interestingly, we've got a number of different ECUs that are reporting various fault codes within them. So I've just asked it to display these fault codes for us now. So it's jumped to an additional tab across the top of the screen. We've now got our self-test tab. Our self-test tab will now give us those fault code descriptions in a little bit more detail. Okay, so we can see now we're now into the main results of the software. So straight away we can see that our powertrain control module, or our engine ECU, has got faults. We know that's got faults in, but also as well we've got some faults down here in these additional modules that we didn't pick up with when we first scanned it with our Autocom tool. Moving on to the right hand side, because I haven't yet selected an ECU to work with, on the right hand side now it's giving me an overview of everything that we can do within the dealer diagnostic software. So from various things such as self-tests, we've got power balance, we've also got obviously reading of configuration data, and we've got some features and functions on here that you don't get with aftermarket tools, such as module programming and software updating. Alright, so I'll take you through the tabs one by one so you can see exactly what's done. Now it's worth noting in this first little column we've got these little stars. Now some of them are yellow and some of them are white. What that does basically is that allows you to pick your favorites. So if you're coming in here and you're wanting to do injector programming quite a lot, you can find the injector programming functionality here. You can click the first column to highlight it yellow, and then that will appear over here then in this second tab in the favorites. So when I click the favorites, only the items with the yellow stars will be displayed. All right, we can select and deselect those and play about with those as much as you like. What we've also got then, if I just go back very, very quickly to the all section, the next tab along after the favorites is the offline. Now again, you can see in this second column here, you've got some that have not got any symbol in, and then you've got these ones here with the little green Wi-Fi symbols. So if I click the offline mode, what that will do is just take out anything that requires an internet connection to physically be run. All right, so now all I'm looking at is functions that can be run without an internet connection. Again, can be quite useful if you're going to want to do something and you're not sure, am I too far away from the Wi-Fi? Am I out in a particular area? Have I gone on a breakdown, for example? All right, certain things that we can do that don't require an internet connection. Moving on to the multi-module. Now the multi-module will show you tests and features that will communicate with more than one ECU. So if, for example, a tow bar configuration could be quite a good example, where the tow bar information is stored within certain different modules to obviously affect the parking sensors, etc, etc. So we can get, so this will display certain tasks and certain features, such as, for example, the self-test. Because the self-test runs through all the modules on the car, it's in the multi-module tab. Moving on to the next tab, we've got our software update. So this is something obviously that's unique to dealer diagnostic tooling. This is really why you need a dealer diagnostic tool, because not all faults on vehicles are hardware specific faults. You're not always changing and removing components and swapping them and putting a new component on. Sometimes there is a technical bulletin that will tell you that there's actually a software weakness within the ECU, and we need to update that software level to the most current level so that the vehicle becomes drivable again to its correct parameters. So we've had this before. For those of you that are Ford specialists, you'll probably remember a while ago the Ford Transit. They had a problem with that exact sensor on the end of the rail, and what you would do is you'd replace the sensor, you'd take the vehicle on a road test, and before you knew it, the sensor would disintegrate and explode into bits because the fuel delivery pressure was too high. That was caused by a software error, and we needed to update the software to change that algorithm to make sure then that when you drove it, it was reporting the exact desired fuel pressure and it wasn't being manipulated. So really, really important. Now from this screen, this software update screen, we can see quite interestingly, the ones that are listed here are the modules that do have software updates for them. Any module that's already on the latest version of software will not be listed here. So again, really quite useful, and at the blink of an eye you can see exactly which module has a software update. I wouldn't suggest going out and doing a software updates on all these modules. If the module is performing well and there's no issue or problem, then there's no need to do a software update. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions people fall into. They'll see software updates. Sometimes that can get you in more trouble than actually resolving the problem first off, because if there's an issue that needs fixing first, we'd advise you do that before you attempt to do software updates. Only really perform a software update if you can find a technical service bulletin informing you to do so. Top tip. Yeah, don't get yourselves down that really wrong, rough road of updating a software module and finding out that suddenly the car doesn't start anymore. Yeah, only do that if you know what you're doing and you've been informed to do so. The next one along, programmable features. Now some of these tabs, these have only just been introduced. So again, the programmable features, they're things like disabling, enabling and reactivating and disactivating. Now the guided routines, the last time I checked, there was nothing within guided routines. Obviously they're always evolving the software, they're always adding things. So again, expect to see something in that link a little bit later on. What's really interesting as well is the little search option here. So if I go back to the All tab, so this is everything. If I'm looking for injector programming and there's a really big long list and I really can't see the wood for the trees, if I start to type in here in this little search box, injector, and what that will do is that will quite clearly shrink that list down and only display me the functions with the word injector within them. All right, so really quite good. Where you can get a bit unstuck really is you really need to know the terminology for the vehicle manufacturer that you're working on. So certain components are called different things from manufacturer to manufacturer. But again, our technical support team, they're on hand to help you and guide you. Again, we offer obviously training on the tool as well. So again, you'll learn all of these hints and tips whilst you're doing your training and whilst you're speaking to our tech support guys. So you're always learning and always getting the most out of your tool. I can see here that there's the, in the PCM, there's the fuel injector learned values. So these are like the codes, if you like. Yeah, so first of all, there's one here that says a check. I'm going to simply go ahead and perform this check. It is one that requires an internet connection. We are on the internet. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to download that application. Okay, once that application is then downloaded, that should then be highlighted in green with the words run. Once it's in the run mode, we can then simply click run, and that will actually now start to perform that particular function that we need. Yeah, so again, it tells me the fuel injector check. This procedure should be used to check new service fuel injectors for a known failure and concern before installation. So again, continue. Now this is something we didn't see in our aftermarket tools. Yeah, so again, it's telling us there, record the fuel injector, the 13-digit part number located on top. So again, with the dealer diagnostic tool, information is key. Yes, we had information within Autocom, but it was more generic. Now we're talking Ford vehicle specific technical information built into the Ford dealer tool. Scroll down. Again, from the list below, select the part number matching the recorded data. So what we now need to do is we now need to check that it's got one of these two part numbers physically fitted. Some of these parts may be modified components. If it's a modified component, I think what it's trying to do here is identify what type of unit we've got fitted. Is it an old one? Is it a new one? All right, so we need to check now with the exact, these are the part number. This isn't the coding, this is the specific part number. So it's not going to let us proceed until we've physically selected the correct part number from the pictures that we've got. This is just some of the insights and overviews as to what is available with the dealer diagnostic tool. To want to know more, then speak to one of our technical specialists or our sales department and ask about the Ford Dealer Diagnostic FDRS software. If you'd like to see more information about the Ford Dealer Diagnostic tool, head to our YouTube videos. We've done quite a few YouTube videos on there for you to look at your own leisure. or alternatively you can visit maverickdiagnostics.com, and that will show you exactly what hardware and what software that we can offer to get you started.